that the author, Kevin Martin, was sitting in the shadow of Croagh Patrick on Bertha Beach when he was inspired by his muse, Meskin, I hope, to transform the sober text of a master's thesis into an intoxicating and full-bodied book. It's a yarn of colourful anecdotes, traditions, fascinating facts, all spun into a compelling narrative. And now, before the barman calls time, I'd like to say skål and sláinte to Kevin Martin for your wonderful book and hand over proceedings to him.
Thanks, Anya. Very hard to follow eloquent words like that. That was wonderful. Thank you, Anya. Thanks to the musicians for coming, and thanks to everyone. I think it's appropriate that we're in Matt Mulloy's for a book on the history of Irish pubs, one of the best old Irish pubs in the world, I suppose, photographed everywhere you go. And we are in a beautiful setting this evening. The lighting's lovely, and I hope you have a good time. There's plenty of food, and we'll have a few drinks, hopefully. Anya mentioned the genesis of this book. I was teaching PE in Edenderry in the Midlands when I decided I'd go back and do a master's thesis in cultural studies. And I decided you had to take a dissertation, so I took, and by the way, that's where I met my beautiful wife, Maria, down there. And, so I decided I'd do a thesis on the history and the role of the pub in Irish culture, it being cultural studies. And we were encouraged at the time, can you hear me from this microphone? Yeah. At the time, like, to do what was called active research, to design questionnaires and surveys. So as you can imagine, it's a very difficult topic to research pubs actively, all that drinking and going around. But anyway, we bore with this, and one of the first things, very young and naive, was I said I'd go to a local pub in Edenderry, and one of the teachers owned a pub. And she said, you know, she owned a drinking problem too, but she owned a pub. And she said, come down that evening and I'll introduce you to anyone around and we'll tell you, you know, what it's like and so on. So I went down of an evening, questionnaire, you know, like we were told to be polite, and she wasn't there, her sister was there, and I explained to her. She said, you want to go over there now and talk to the rat? Pardon? You want to go over and talk to the rat? Rattigan. So there was a man called Rattigan. I don't know the Midlands, but they do have strange nicknames sometimes. So I went over. The rat, or Mr. Rattigan, was one of these guys who collected the glasses in exchange for a couple of pints, and that was he spent his time there. Went over, started talking to him, and explained my mission as, you know, Mr. Rattigan. Why would you come to the pub generally, or what do you find in the pub? I come to the pub when they're browning me at home. Pardon? Browning me. Yeah, pretty much their own lingo in Edenderry, and yeah, okay. Browning me off. So I had heard of a drowned rat, but never a brown rat. Anyway, we got on fine. We were talking away, and very nice guy. He says, hang on now, there's my daughter. We talked to her. Two girls came in, and he says, she's just after having a baby. And got talking, they were very nice. Girls answered my question, and I asked his daughter a question. She was knocking backside her. Now, Edenderry is a lovely town, but can be a little bit rough around the edges. And was talking to her, and said, oh yeah, and what do you think of pubs? She said, I don't know what it is, but having babies makes me mad for beer. And that was Edenderry, and God bless anyone from Edenderry. But anyways, I went on, and I retired from my job in Dublin. I said, well, what could I do? Could I go back and write something? So I said, well, maybe I'll go back and write something about pubs. It's the only thing I'd ever written. And as Anya so eloquently said, that idea came to me on the beach. And I thought, well, what could you write about pubs? I said, well, maybe one thing you could look at was how pubs were represented in Irish cinema and stuff like that. And so, all right, I'll take a spin out to Gainer's Bar, if you know what, the Field Bar out in Minan. And I got talking, very nice man, the barman, and they said, you know what, is there anyone at the bar that was round when they were making the movie The Field, you know, Richard Harris and all that? He said, well, you could talk to that man there. Now, I'm not too sure what he might tell you, but you could talk to him. So I went over to this particular man. It was the day of the Ascot Gold Cup, is that what it's called? The horse racing. And told him my mission. And I said, will you have a pint? And he said, no, but I'll take the money for the price of it. So that was fine. So I didn't give him the money because that's what researchers do. And actually headed off. And it was one of those, I don't know if you know the particular pub, but it's like what's called a spirit grocers, you know, like a pub in one end and then the shop. And I saw him go into the shop and he bought 3 bars of Dairy Milk chocolates and he padded back to where I was and sat down. He was a big man. He started eating the chocolates. And I started asking him questions, you know, Richard Harrison. I saw them all. And, what was the director like? I saw them all. I was eating the chocolates. And that was this. He wouldn't say anything more to me for a day. So I was down the money of the chocolate and all that. But I wrote it off to research, not to be deterred. The following weekend, I went to Kong. You know the Quiet Man pub? So the Quiet Man pub, as you know, was in the movie The Quiet Man. And as you might know, some of you might know probably, that they didn't actually use the inside of the pub for the movie because they didn't have the technology to do that at that time. So sometimes they possibly, you may hear them, they did it in Hollywood. The only real thing that's in the Quiet Man pub are the 2 taps, 2 of the beer taps that some enterprising local from Con brought back, and from Universal Studios in Hollywood, and they're there. But I went in anyway, and I knew that. I was talking to the young Australian guy, a very brash character, as some of the Australians are, if they don't know, they're here, and talking to him. And he says, yeah, you're welcome. He says, you know where you're sitting now? That's where John Wayne's sitting. And just over there, John Wayne had the fight with Victor McLaughlin. I knew all this, of course. This didn't happen at all. But they had created this myth around the whole thing. Now, if you're up there and if they're here, I don't know the voice of them, it's a lovely bar and the food is really good. So, there you go. But it's amazing how false information is sometimes perpetuated in pubs. And on a more serious note, though, thank you for coming. I think pubs are very central to Irish society. I think it's a noble tradition. If you travel abroad, anywhere you go in the world, you're going to see Irish pubs, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I lived myself in Yokohama for a while, and I remember the first night we got there, 2 English lads, we got brought in. It's very strange, Japan, when you go, because you go around on these highways that circulate around huge neon-lit buildings. It's a strange environment, and we got back to our flats and they showed us them. So, geez, we'll go for a pint. And there was an Irish pub, the nearest one. It was called the Red Tug. And we went into this place called the Red Tug. And the speciality in the pub was mint julep. And the main dish on this Irish menu was haggis, which was Irish special. So sometimes the concept of the Irish pub isn't very well translated across the cultures. Because the other thing was, in Japan, if you've been there, they stop you at the door in a lot of these pubs, and then they bring you to a seat, put you sitting down. So it's totally against our concept of what an Irish pub is. But I'd just like to thank the people that have given me the great help, Maria and my children, my family, my brothers, the Collins Press in Cork. It's not easy to get a book published. It's a long process. It can be a difficult process, but I found them very helpful, and I encourage anyone else that would like to write to try, because I didn't think I could do it actually. I hadn't done anything for years, and I sat down and I got a few offers on it, and I was delighted to deal with the Collins Press. So thank you everybody so much for coming here tonight. And there's a couple of people I wish they were here. I wish my mother Teresa was here. She's not. I wish my father-in-law Dennis Carter was here. He's not. As we know Dennis from the school and from his long involvement in the GA here in Westport and Mayo. But God bless them, I hope they're looking down on us. And finally, I'd particularly like to thank my wife Maria. She stuck with me to thick and thin. There's been a lot of thin nights. And she knows that. And thank you very much, and have a good evening. Thanks very much.